Danica Lorer, and this is Lit Happens, your celebration of the literary arts here in Saskatchewan. Today, I'm very pleased to welcome our guest, Rita Bouvier. Rita, welcome to Lit Happens.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Rita, let's just start at the beginning. Can you tell me a little bit about what got you started as a writer and as a poet?
Well, I think just an interest in poetry came about very easily for me because, as I have told the story many times, it was the way in which I learned to speak English, and memorizing poetry, gave me that way into the English language and the rhythm of that language. And sometimes I didn't know what I was saying, really, because I'd memorized the words, but in the end it served its purpose.
Well, and poetry has so many purposes then, as a way to learn a language and to even just enjoy language that you don't know. I know I've listened to poetry in other languages and people say, well, why would you want to listen to that in another language? But there's something so beautiful about listening to poetry. And so do you know why poetry called to you as an art form?
Well, I think, it's age old, as I call it. It's really a search, if you will, for purpose and for meaning, and a way that I could live my life. A way to, in my case, as an Indigenous woman, a Métis woman, to transcend the material and imaginative failures of our time, my time. And so poetry has given me that way to, be on my journey, so to speak.
And have you been on this poetic journey for a long time? When did you start writing poetry?
Yes, for a long time. I think that I started to squirrel away my little poems since in high school, but I didn't tell too many people that I wrote poetry because it wasn't cool, and nor did I write for I didn't want to make it public, in the same way that sitting here is kind of nerve-wracking, but here I am.
Well, and there's something lovely about putting the poetry on a page and letting other people read it and enjoy it.
So they say.
But I've also heard you read, and it really is lovely. I think it's really lovely to listen to poets read their own work, because it's something to hear the voice that goes with the thoughts is a beautiful, beautiful sharing. So I've really appreciated that.
Oh, thanks.
Now tell us a little bit about some of your books. What was your first book? What was the first book you had published?
The first one was Blueberry Clouds, and then the second one was Papiatak, and the latest one is Nagamunsa for the Seasons.
And has your style and the story, or what you're telling us, changed very much through the progression of the story, through the progression of the books, or is it a continuation?
Well, it's hard to say. I'd need others to tell me that, but I suspect there has been some kind of progression and evolution in my own writing. I hope that it's also getting better, and more finished, if you will.
So can you tell me a little bit about some of the poems in one of the volumes?
Well, I could maybe focus on Papiatak for now, because it's philosophical, if you will. It's the title poem is Papiatak, and it's a philosophy that I learned from my grandmother. I was raised by my grandparents, so I need to say that. And she always used this particular concept as I was growing up as a child, and so I thought it was very important and something I wanted to pass on to my own son about, remembering to live your life in a very balanced way, in a respectful way, to walk in a respectful way, and to be joyful. Very simple, but not so.
Well, and we have to learn it, and it's, we need reminders, and what a beautiful way to be reminded of the lessons that we should continue to learn every day in poetry.
Yes.
And so do you find that, do you read other poets and do you find that their work speaks to you and teaches you lessons as well?
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's really, you know, my my process, if you will, for writing is really, I call it, you know, there seems to be a lot of R's in it, but it's, you know, reading, reflecting, and writing, researching. I do a lot of research for the work that I write, and then, you know, basically joining others in a retreat setting to be hands-on with our work, and so, you know, it's quite a process.
And I know you're very active in the arts community in Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon. What does that give you, having the community of writers?
Well, I'll go back to the teachings of my grandmother. I have a responsibility, I think, to you know, not just myself, but to the community, and in some way to give back. And so I am very involved not only with the Saskatchewan Aboriginal Writers Circle Incorporated, SAWC, as we call ourselves, but I'm also involved with a Writers Guild, and belong to a number of writing groups as a way of really trying to, you know, hone my own practice and writing and poetry, particularly in poetry. I do write other things too. So.
And we're hearing, sometimes we've been reading lately, or I have been, about how poetry, there are people that don't believe in the power of poetry. Can you speak a little bit to why you think poetry is important in this day and age?
Well, for all the reasons I said at the beginning in terms of why I write. I mean, I don't think obviously, as I said in the beginning, I wrote for myself, but I hope that what I write has resonance, you know, for others that otherwise why would you write? Mm-hmm. I'm wanting to connect to something larger than myself. And yeah, so I leave it there.
And what a wonderful way to make those connections. So what are you working on now? What are you working on to put out into the world next?
Well, I've held back a couple of pieces that could have gone into the latest book, Nagamunsa, for the seasons, and I'm hoping to send them to a publisher that does children's books. So I've got a couple that I've held back that will, and then I'm working on hopefully what will be a fourth collection of poetry, and around the themes of resistance and revolution. And I've suggested to people I might just, you know, put a bracket around the R, just not to scare people away. So.
Well, Rita, that's all the time we have for today.
Oh.
I'm so grateful that I've had this chance to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on Lit Happens with us today.
Well, thank you, Danica.
I'm Danica Lorer, and this has been Lit Happens. You can find past episodes of the show by going to YouTube and searching Shaw TV Saskatoon. You can find me on Facebook or Twitter, or contact me at danicalorer@gmail.com. Thank you for watching.